Krastul adjusted the viewing screen and sighed. 300 years of studying the small blue planet, and still the creatures surprised him. He carefully recorded his observations into the Great Archive, as he had done every day for the past 50 years. The humans had just survived another war among themselves, their fourth global conflict in 2 centuries. Any reasonable species would have destroyed themselves by now, but not these bizarre beings. They fought, they suffered, they rebuilt, and somehow they grew stronger. Fascinating but ultimately harmless, Krastul muttered, repeating the official Viraxian collective classification for humans. He wasn't entirely convinced of the harmless part, but his concerns had been dismissed by his superiors many times before. The Viraxian observation post on the dark side of Earth's moon was the perfect place to watch without being seen. The humans had visited their moon a few times over 100 years ago, planted some flags, and then seemingly lost interest. Their primitive space technology was developing again, but still nowhere near discovering the hidden Viraxian base. Mechlorn, his younger colleague, entered the observation dome. The High Council requests your weekly report, Elder Krastul. Tell them it's the same as last week. The humans continue to be unpredictable. Mechlorn's upper eye stalks twitched with concern. The Council is finalizing first contact plans. They believe the time is approaching. Krastul turned all 4 of his eyes toward his assistant. Do they now? And what do you think, young one? I think. Mechlorn hesitated, his voice dropping to a whisper. I think we still don't understand them. Just yesterday, I observed a human rescue team risk 7 lives to save 1 small human child. It makes no evolutionary sense. Krastul nodded. I've documented 12,843 similar incidents. The Council calls it an evolutionary flaw. I'm not so certain. On the screen, a human city glowed in the darkness. Just 50 years ago, it had been destroyed in conflict. Now it thrived again. They're resilient, Mechlorn said. More than resilient. They adapt at an alarming rate. Krastul pulled up his historical records. Look here. In just 300 years, they went from horse-drawn vehicles to space exploration. Our species took 3,000 years to make similar progress. Mechlorn's skin paled slightly. Perhaps we should delay contact. The Council won't hear of it. They've already begun manufacturing the gifts we'll present to the humans. Advanced technology that will seem magical to them. The Council believes this will establish our superiority immediately. And if it doesn't? Krastul didn't answer. After centuries studying humans, he had developed something unusual for a Viraxian, intuition, and his intuition told him the Council's confidence was misplaced. The communication panel chimed. The face of Vexapor, head of the High Council, appeared. His purple skin gleamed with ceremonial oils. Elder Krastul, your reports have been most valuable. The Council has made its decision. First contact will begin next Earth year. The humans have sent primitive robotic explorers to their neighboring planet. We will reveal ourselves there. Supreme Leader, I must again express my concerns. The humans. Air primitive beings who will be grateful for our guidance. Vexapor interrupted. Your caution is noted, but unnecessary. Our evolutionary path is clearly superior. Our technology is thousands of years beyond theirs. What could possibly go wrong? After the communication ended, Krastul returned to his observations. On the screen, a human military exercise was taking place. Soldiers were practicing for war, as they always did, even in times of peace. They're always preparing, Mechlorn said quietly. Yes, Krastul agreed. But preparing for what? They don't know we exist. Perhaps they sense something. Perhaps deep down, they know they're being watched. Krastul began a new entry in his log. One day, he thought, these records might be important. One day, someone might need to understand why things went wrong. Because despite the Council's confidence, despite 3 centuries of study, despite all their superior Viraxian intellect, Toll couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something fundamental about humans. Something important, something dangerous. Kate Miller floated outside the Mars Research Station, carefully checking the solar panels. As NASA's lead astronaut on the Red Planet mission, she took her maintenance duties seriously. The 6-person crew depended on these panels for survival. "Kate, you need to see this." Alan Carter's voice crackled through her helmet comm. The military officer had been added to the mission at the last minute, which had struck Kate as odd for a scientific expedition. "On my way," she replied, securing her tools and pushing off toward the airlock. Inside the station, Alan stood with the rest of the crew, staring at a monitor. His normally calm face looked tense. "It appeared about 20 minutes ago," he explained, pointing to a blinking object on the screen. "It's not ours, and it's not any known space junk. It's moving with purpose." Kate leaned closer. "A probe. Russian. Chinese." Alan shook his head. "I've checked with Earth. It doesn't match any known human technology." The room fell silent as the meaning sank in. "You're saying it's alien," Kate said finally. "That's exactly what I'm saying." Within hours, the news reached Earth. The strange probe had landed 3 miles from the Mars station. Kate and Alan suited up to investigate while the world watched through their cameras. "It's like nothing I've ever seen," Kate whispered as they approached the sleek, purple-black object. It hummed softly, standing about 7 feet tall on 3 curved legs. "Don't touch it," Alan warned, his hand resting on the pistol he'd insisted on bringing. Before Kate could reply, the top of the probe opened like a flower. A holographic image appeared, a tall, 4-eyed being with purple skin. "People of Earth," the image spoke in perfect English. "I am Ambassador Vexpor of the Varaxian Collective. We have watched your development for centuries. The time has come to welcome you to the galactic community." The effect on Earth was immediate. Some people panicked. Others celebrated. World leaders held emergency meetings. Within days, a larger Varaxian ship arrived in Earth orbit. Ambassador Vexpor and his delegation landed in a field outside the United Nations building in New York. Greg Summers, a career diplomat known for his level head, was chosen to lead Earth's contact team. At his first meeting with Vexpor, the alien presented him with a small cube. "A gift," Vexpor explained. "This contains the cure for your most common cancers." More gifts followed: clean energy technology, advanced materials, medical breakthroughs. The Varaxians appeared generous, wise, and peaceful. But not everyone was convinced. General Linda Ortiz sat in her Pentagon office, reviewing reports from her various contacts. "They're too perfect," she told her staff. "No species evolves without conflict, yet they claim to have known only peace for 10,000 years. She picked up a secure phone. "I want deep background checks on these gifts. Full analysis, no assumptions." Meanwhile, on the Varaxian mothership, Mechlorn approached his mentor with concern. "Elder Toll, the humans are accepting our technology much faster than predicted. They're already improving upon some of it." "I've been saying for years we underestimate them," Toll replied. "Has the High Council revised their annexation timeline?" "No, they still plan to begin resource extraction from the outer planets next year. They believe humans will be too dazzled by our gifts to notice. And if they do notice..." Mechlorn's skin paled. "The military contingent is prepared for minimal resistance operations." Toll turned back to his monitors, watching as humans around the world celebrated the arrival of their space brothers. "I fear," he said quietly, "that our leaders have confused technological superiority with superiority of will. The humans have something our species lost long ago." "What's that?" Mechlorn asked. "Hunger," Toll answered, "and a willingness to die for what they believe in. We may be about to discover which is stronger, our technology or their determination." 5 years passed since the Varaxians arrived. Earth changed in ways no one could have imagined before first contact. Cities gleamed with new technology. Diseases that once killed millions were now easily cured. Space travel within the solar system became common. Paul Mason worked late in his lab at the North American Science Institute. As one of Earth's top scientists, he had access to Varaxian technology that still seemed like magic to most humans. Tonight, he was studying a power cell that never seemed to run out of energy. The principles are similar to what we theorized. He muttered to himself, making notes on his tablet. But they've solved problems we didn't even know existed. What Paul didn't tell his Varaxian advisors was that he had already improved their design in 3 different ways. Humans were quick learners. Across the solar system, on Titan, Saturn's largest moon, Susan Wright shivered despite her heated suit. A colony supervisor had received strange reports from her survey team and decided to check for herself. "It should be just over this ridge," said her guide, pointing ahead. Susan climbed carefully in the low gravity until she reached the top. Below, in a valley that should have been empty according to official maps, massive machines dug into Titan's surface. The machines bore Varaxian markings. "How long has this been going on?" she asked. "At least 6 months. They told us it was a scientific project, but they're taking resources. Lots of them." Susan took photos with her suit camera. "We need to report this to Earth." But when she returned to the colony and sent her report, the response was troubling. Her immediate superior thanked her for the information, but said the matter would be handled through diplomatic channels. No action followed. A week later, she was transferred back to Earth with a promotion that felt more like a way to keep her quiet. Meanwhile, aboard the main Varaxian research vessel, Zivnar presented his findings to an audience of sinologists. "Humans are unique among known species," the young researcher explained. "Their history is filled with violence, yet they also display remarkable compassion. They will kill each other by the millions, then risk everything to save a single life." An elder Varaxian interrupted. "Your fascination with human warfare is disturbing, Zivnar." "Not fascination, elder. Concern." Zivnar displayed images of ancient human battles alongside modern military exercises. In just a few thousand years, they advanced from stone weapons to nuclear missiles, and they never stopped practicing for war, even in times of peace. "The High Council assures us they are being properly managed," another elder said dismissively. Kraz Tull, who sat quietly in the back, exchanged glances with Mechlorn. Neither spoke their doubts aloud anymore. It wasn't safe. The collective had committed to its path. On Earth, diplomat Greg Summers met with Varaxian Ambassador Vexpor in Washington. Their regular meetings had become tense in recent months. "We've received reports of unauthorized mining operations on Titan," Greg said. "A simple misunderstanding," Vexpor replied smoothly. "Cultural exchange requires resource sharing. Resource sharing suggests both sides receive benefits," Greg pointed out. "We'd like a full accounting of what's being taken and why." Vexpor's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of irritation he couldn't quite hide. "Of course, I'll have a report prepared." Later that evening, in a secure room deep beneath the Pentagon, General Linda Ortiz met with a small group that included Paul Mason and newly arrived from Titan, Susan Wright. "They're lying to us," Susan said firmly. "The operation I saw wasn't scientific. It was industrial-scale mining." Paul nodded. "And the technology they're sharing? It's advanced, but selective. They're holding back anything that could be used for defense." Linda activated a secure screen showing military satellite images from across the solar system. "We've been tracking their ships. There are more arriving every month. Far more than needed for cultural exchange." "What are you suggesting?" Susan asked. Linda's face was grim. "I'm suggesting we prepare for the possibility that our new friends aren't friends at all." John Willis was not a man who trusted easily. As chief engineer for the Global Defense Network, his job was to find problems before they became disasters. For weeks, he had been studying the communication devices the Varaxians had given to world leaders. "There's something not right about these," he told his assistant as they worked late in their secure lab. He carefully opened one of the devices. "See this component? It doesn't connect to any communication function." "What does it do?" his assistant asked. "It listens, all the time, even when the device is supposedly off." John sat back in his chair. "They're not just communication tools. They're surveillance devices." Across town, journalist Diane Foster received an encrypted message from one of her sources inside the North American Science Institute. The message contained technical specifications for several Varaxian gifts to humanity. As she reviewed the documents, a pattern emerged. "They all connect to a central network," she whispered to herself. "Everything they've given us phones home to their ships." Diane had built her career on exposing corporate corruption. Now she found herself investigating something far bigger. She contacted John Willis, whose name appeared in several documents as raising security concerns. Meanwhile, Greg Summers left a tense meeting with the United Nations Security Council. As he walked to his car, his security detail seemed nervous. "Is something wrong?" Greg asked his head of security. "Just a precaution, sir. We received an anonymous tip about a threat." Greg had received death threats before. As the face of human-Varaxian relations, he was both celebrated and criticized. Some saw him as a visionary leading humanity into a golden age. Others called him a puppet for alien masters. The first shot shattered his car window. The second would have hit him if his security guard hadn't pushed him down. From the ground, Greg saw his guards return fire at a nearby building. Later, safe in a secure location, Greg reviewed security footage with General Linda Ortiz. "The assassin used a Varaxian energy weapon," Linda pointed out. "Very few humans have access to those." "You think the Varaxians tried to kill me?" Greg asked, shocked. "I think," Linda said carefully, "that you've been asking too many questions lately." She showed him files compiled by John Willis and Diane Foster. Reports of unauthorized mining throughout the solar system. Evidence of surveillance built into Varaxian gifts. Unusual ship movements near Jupiter. "They're preparing for something," Linda said. "And I've been preparing too." She revealed that her team had been reverse engineering Varaxian technology and developing countermeasures in secret facilities around the world. "Without authorization?" Greg asked. "Sometimes asking permission means being told no," Linda replied. "And I couldn't risk that." Far from Earth, near Jupiter's orbit, a Varaxian military vessel approached a human research station. On board, Commander Dresvar received his orders from the High Council. "The annexation timeline has been accelerated," the message stated. "Remove the human observation post. Make it appear accidental." "Understood," Dresvar replied. He turned to his weapons officer. "Target their life support systems. Make it look like a malfunction." The attack was swift and deadly. All 23 humans aboard the station perished. Official Varaxian messages expressed deep regret for the tragic accident. But one Varaxian didn't accept the official story. McLaurin had monitored the military communication channels. He knew the truth. After centuries of serving the collective faithfully, he made a decision that would change the course of history. Using a small personal craft, he set course for Earth. His message was simple. "The collective has lied to you. An invasion force is coming. You have very little time to prepare." On Earth, as news of the Jupiter accident spread, Linda Ortiz put her secret forces on high alert. Paul Mason worked frantically to complete weapons based on modified Varaxian designs, and Greg Summers prepared to confront Ambassador Vexpor with evidence of betrayal. The time for cultural exchange was ending. The time for war was approaching. The Varaxian fleet entered the solar system in formation that looked like a beautiful dance. 50 ships, their purple hulls gleaming in the sunlight, moved with perfect precision. Ambassador Vexpor announced they were coming to celebrate 5 years of friendship with a cultural festival. Admiral Kate Miller, watching from the bridge of Earth's largest space vessel, didn't believe it for a second. "Those aren't festival formations," she told her crew, pointing to the tactical display. "Those are battle groups." Kate had come a long way from her days as a Mars astronaut. After the Jupiter accident, she had been given command of Earth's growing space defense force. a force that was painfully small compared to what now approached. "Alert all Earth governments," she ordered, "and get me General Ortiz." On Earth, Greg Summers attended what was supposed to be a final peace conference before the celebrations began. Varaxian dignitaries filled the United Nations Hall, their four eyes blinking in sequence as they spoke of friendship and shared futures. Greg's security detail had doubled after the assassination attempt. As he prepared to address the gathering, his phone buzzed with an urgent message from Kate Miller. "Battle formations. Not for in July. Get out and now." He caught the eye of his head of security and nodded slightly toward the exit. Too late. The doors to the hall closed and locked. Ambassador Vexpor approached the podium. "My dear human friends," he began, his voice silky smooth. "Today marks a new chapter in our relationship." Greg noticed something odd. All the Varaxians were moving away from the human delegates, creating distance. In orbit around Mars, the first Varaxian ships broke formation. Without warning, they fired on the human colonies. Buildings crumbled. Air domes collapsed. Thousands died in minutes. The attack hit Lumen next. Earth's moon colonies, with their population of nearly 1 million, faced the same sudden devastation. At the United Nations, Vexpor continued his speech, unaware that Greg had received warning. "For too long, we have treated you as equals when in fact you err." Greg didn't wait to hear the rest. He ducked under the table as his security team drew weapons. Gunfire erupted in the hall. In the chaos, Greg crawled toward a side exit. A Varaxian guard spotted him and fired an energy weapon. The blast missed Greg but hit the wall behind him, showering him with debris and leaving a painful burn across his back. Somehow, he made it outside. In orbit, Kate Miller watched in horror as the attack spread. Her ship was too far from Mars or Luma to help. She gave the only order she could. "All ships, defensive positions around Earth. Prepare to engage." The first battle in space was brief and devastating. Human ships, despite 5 years of advancement, were no match for Varaxian weapons. Kate lost half her fleet in 30 minutes, but managed to destroy 3 enemy vessels, more resistance than the Varaxians had expected. As Kate retreated to regroup, emergency broadcasts reached every corner of Earth. The message was simple: "We are under attack. This is not a drill." In his underground command center, General Linda Ortiz gathered Earth's military leaders. The room was grim as reports of the Mars and Luna massacres came in. "They think they've won already," Linda told the group. "They think this will be easy." A side door opened, and Greg Summers entered, his clothes torn and bloody from his escape. "Mr. Summers," Linda acknowledged, "I'm glad you made it." Greg looked at the tactical displays showing Varaxian ships moving into Earth orbit. "What do we do now?" "Now," Linda said, "we show them what humans do best. We fight." Within hours, Earth formally declared war on the Varaxian collective. The announcement was broadcast on all frequencies, including those used by Varaxian ships. In his quarters aboard the Varaxian flagship, Elder Kraz Toll began recording in his historical chronicle. He wrote of the attack, the human losses, and the High Council's confidence in a quick victory. "They believe resistance will end within days," he noted. "They believe humans will surrender rather than face extinction." He paused, remembering centuries of observations. "I believe they are wrong." 6 months into the war, Earth was losing badly. The Varaxians controlled most of the solar system. They had destroyed Earth's major military bases and occupied large parts of Asia and North America. Millions had died in the initial attacks. But humans did not surrender. Paul Mason hadn't slept properly in weeks. His underground lab was one of the few research facilities still intact. Around him, scientists and engineers worked day and night on their last hope, weapons that could penetrate Varaxian shields. "The problem is their energy field," Hall explained to General Linda Ortiz during her visit to the lab. "It absorbs our weapons' fire and gets stronger." Linda looked at the failed prototypes scattered across the workbenches. We need a breakthrough, and we need it soon. I think we have one, Paul said, leading her to a sealed chamber. We modified their own technology. Instead of trying to break through their shields with force, this weapon disrupts the field itself. He pointed to what looked like a regular rifle with strange purple components. We've only built 5 so far. They require parts from damaged Varaxian ships. Linda picked up one of the weapons. How effective are they? In tests, they create a 3-second window where the shield fails completely, enough time for a second shot to do damage. Linda nodded. It's a start. Get these to our frontline teams immediately. What the Varaxians hadn't expected was how quickly humans adapted to fighting them. After initial devastating losses, human forces shifted to guerrilla tactics. They avoided direct confrontation with superior Varaxian technology. Instead, they struck quickly at weak points and disappeared. Meklorn, the Varaxian defector, provided crucial intelligence. He knew Varaxian protocols, weaknesses, and plans. More importantly, he helped humans understand how Varaxians thought. They expect you to behave logically, he explained to a group of military leaders. When you don't, it confuses their battle computers. On occupied Luna, Diane Foster had built a resistance network. The journalist used her skills to gather and spread information. Her team sabotaged Varaxian equipment and gathered intelligence for Earth. They communicated using old radio technology that the Varaxians considered too primitive to monitor. Aboard the Varaxian command ship, Commander Dresvar was frustrated. His reports to the High Council were becoming difficult to write. The humans continued to resist despite having no logical path to victory, he told his officers. Their tactics make no sense. They sacrifice valuable resources to save populations with no military value. His tactical officer spoke up. They attacked our supply depot in Sector 7 yesterday. 30 humans died to destroy resources we can easily replace. But they also destroyed the shield generators, another officer pointed out. The third such attack this month. Dresvar slammed his fist on the table. Their behavior doesn't follow any known military doctrine. How can we predict what can't be predicted? Back on Earth, in the ruins of Chicago, Admiral Kate Miller led a small strike team on a daring mission. They moved silently through abandoned streets, carrying Paul Mason's new weapons. Remember, Kate whispered to her team. We hit the communication center, plant the virus, and get out. We don't engage unless absolutely necessary. The mission was a success. The virus, designed by Paul using knowledge from Meklorn, spread through the Varaxian battle network, causing minor malfunctions in their targeting systems. Not enough to win the war, but enough to save lives. In his hidden observatory, now relocated to a cave deep in Earth's mountains, Elder Kraz Tool continued his chronicles. The High Council had ordered him to document the conquest of Earth for future generations of Varaxians. Instead, he found himself recording something very different. Day 189 of the war, he dictated. Human resistance continues to grow despite overwhelming tactical disadvantages. Their ability to adapt exceeds all predictive models. The Council remains confident, but doubt spreads among our military commanders. We have superior technology, superior numbers, and superior vision. Yet victory remains elusive. He paused, watching video feeds of small human victories around the world. Perhaps, he added quietly, we have been measuring the wrong things all along. John Willis worked through the night in his makeshift lab. Around him, a team of engineers carefully assembled weapons using salvaged Varaxian parts. These weren't just any weapons. They were the newest version of Paul Mason's shield penetrators, but with a critical improvement. The power cells are stable, one of his assistants reported. We can produce 20 units per day now. John nodded, his tired eyes fixed on the weapon in his hands. The penetration window is up to 8 seconds. That's more than enough time for a killing shot. News of the improved weapons spread quickly through Earth's resistance networks. For the first time in the year-long war, humans had a technological edge, however small. But weapons alone wouldn't win this war. Earth needed allies. In a secret meeting room beneath the ruins of London, Greg Summers met with unusual visitors. They called themselves the Novan Collective, a species that had also suffered from Varaxian expansion. They were tall, with gray skin and six-fingered hands. They had been watching the human resistance with growing interest. "Your people fight with remarkable determination," the Novan leader said. "We believe the Varaxians couldn't be defeated. Now we're not so certain." Greg, his face scarred from countless close calls, leaned forward. "We need ships. We need advanced weapons. Can you help us? We can provide technology, but we cannot fight your war for you. The Varaxians destroyed half our world when we resisted. Technology is enough," Greg assured them. "Humans are good at fighting our own battles." The alliance was formed that day. Novan technology began flowing to human resistance factories. Combined with what humans had learned from Varaxian systems, it created new possibilities. Meanwhile, Alan Carter prepared for the most daring operation of the war. Once a military officer on a Mars mission, he now commanded Earth's remaining space forces. His target, reclaiming Mars. "The Varaxians have grown complacent on Mars," he told his pilots. "Their garrison is minimal. They don't expect us to have the resources for a space offensive." The attack began at dawn, Earth time. 30 small craft, equipped with John Willis's new shield penetrators, launched from hidden bases in the Himalayas. They'd reached Mars with minimal detection thanks to stealth technology provided by the Novans. The battle for Mars lasted just 6 hours. The Varaxian defenders, caught completely by surprise, couldn't adapt quickly enough to the new weapons. By day's end, the Red Planet was back in human hands. News of the victory spread across Earth and through the occupied solar system. It was more than a military win. It was a powerful symbol. Humans could take back what was theirs. On the Varaxian homeworld, the High Council met in emergency session. Reports of the Mars defeat had caused political turmoil. "How can primitives defeat our forces?" one counselor demanded. "This is unacceptable." Another pounded the table. "Commander Dresvar has failed us. He should be replaced immediately." The debate raged for hours. For the first time in thousands of years, the Varaxian leadership faced the possibility of military defeat. Their society, built on the assumption of natural superiority, began to fracture. Back in Earth orbit, Susan Wright led a team of space commandos on a mission that seemed impossible, capturing a Varaxian command ship. Using the confusion after the Mars victory, her small craft approached the massive vessel. "Remember," she told her team, "we need it intact. Target only essential systems." The boarding action was brutal and costly. 6 of her 20 commandos died in the first minutes, but the new shield penetrators did their work, and the humans fought with fierce determination. 3 hours later, Susan stood on the bridge of the captured ship. "Send the message," she ordered her communications officer. "Tell Earth we have their battle plans. Tell them we can see everything they're planning." In his hidden observatory, Krastol added a new entry to his chronicle. He no longer pretended it was for the glory of the collective. This was history that needed to be recorded truthfully. "The humans have achieved what we thought impossible," he wrote. "They have not just survived, they have begun to push us back. I find myself, against all logic, hoping they succeed." The final battle for Earth began 18 months after the Varaxians' surprise attack. The once mighty alien fleet had shrunk from 50 ships to 23. Human forces, bolstered by Novan technology and their own adaptability, gathered for what everyone knew would be the decisive confrontation. Admiral Kate Miller stood on the bridge of the captured Varaxian command ship, now renamed Defiance. Around her, human and Novan crew members worked at stations once operated by their enemies. "All ships report ready," her second-in-command announced. Kate nodded, her face showing the weight of command and the scars of many battles. "Begin the operation." The human fleet moved into position around Earth, thanks to the battle plans captured by Susan Wright. They knew exactly where the Varaxian forces would concentrate their attack. On the Varaxian flagship, Commander Dresvar watched the human deployment with growing concern. Something wasn't right. Their formation seemed designed to funnel his ships toward Earth's northern hemisphere. It's a trap, he realized too late. Alter course immediately. But the humans had anticipated this reaction. Hidden ships, using Novan cloaking technology, suddenly appeared behind the Varaxian fleet. The aliens were caught between two forces. The space battle raged for hours. Varaxian ships, their once impenetrable shields now vulnerable to human weapons, fought desperately. Commander Dresvar ordered his forces to focus all fire on Admiral Miller's Defiance, hoping to cut off the human command structure. "They think we can't function without centralized control," Kate told her bridge crew as enemy fire rocked their ship. "That's their weakness, not ours." She gave new orders. Execute Operation Last Stand. Across the fleet, human captains acknowledged the command. Then they did something the Varaxians couldn't comprehend. Small teams on fast, expendable ships began suicide runs against the largest enemy vessels. "They're sacrificing themselves," a Varaxian officer reported to Dresvar, his voice filled with confusion. "The crews cannot possibly survive." Dresvar watched in disbelief as humans deliberately crashed ships into his fleet's weak points. The Varaxian battle computers couldn't process this strategy. It defied all logical military doctrine. In the chaos, Kate Miller led the Defiance on what appeared to be a hopeless charge directly at the Varaxian flagship. Her ship took devastating damage, losing engines and weapon systems. "Collision course," she ordered calmly. "Full remaining power." The Defiance plowed into the side of Dresvar's vessel. As the ships locked together, Kate gave her final order: launch boarding teams. Human soldiers, led by Linda Ortiz herself, poured into the Varaxian flagship. The fighting was brutal, room by room. Linda's forces used every trick they had learned in 18 months of desperate war. They switched tactics constantly, never following patterns the Varaxian defenders could predict. On the bridge, Dresvar received increasingly frantic reports. Humans were approaching from multiple directions. His crew was falling back. "This cannot be happening," he whispered as the door to his bridge exploded inward. Linda Ortiz, blood streaming from a wound in her shoulder, stepped through the smoke. "Commander Dresvar," she said, "your fleet is defeated. Surrender or die." 3 days later, in the ruins of the United Nations building, Greg Summers met with the remaining Varaxian leadership. No longer was he the junior diplomat awed by alien visitors. Now he represented victorious humanity. "These are our terms," he told them. "Complete withdrawal from our solar system, reparations for the worlds you devastated, and recognition of Earth's independence and sovereignty." The Varaxian representative, his once proud posture now bent with defeat, had no choice but to agree. Months later, as the last Varaxian ships left the solar system, Elder Kraz Tool completed his historical chronicle. It had grown from a simple record of conquest to something far more important, a warning to his own kind. In his final entry, he wrote the words that would become famous throughout the galaxy. "We studied them for centuries, but nothing prepared us for war. We measured their technology, but not their spirit. We analyzed their weapons, but not their determination. We counted their numbers, but not their courage." Perhaps the greatest failure in Varaxian history was not that we underestimated humans, but that we never truly tried to understand them. On the last page, he added a personal note. "I return to Earth not as an observer, but as a student. There is much we can learn from these remarkable beings, if only we have the wisdom to listen."